We are live.
All right, thank you, Patrick. Call this meeting to order. We're at 6:31. Roll call shows that we have all of our full complement of counselors and administrative staff. So we'll record that, and then we'll go to open forum. Oh, what?
We're also joined by Jeff Miller from HKGI.
Perfect, thank you. And then so we'll do that as a roll call, and then we'll move on to the open forum. Does anyone have anything for the open forum to read? Going once, going twice. All right, we'll close the open forum and move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda has typical 3 items: the agenda for this meeting, the previous meeting minutes, and then the bills from the past that we have sent to the previous meeting. Unless someone would like to pull one of those items for discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We need to make a change to the minutes from the November 10th meeting. It says that Acting Mayor Anton Moody called the meeting to order. It also states Anton was not at the meeting, which he was not. So the change needs to be made that Jay called the meeting to order on November 10th.
There you go.
With that correction, I motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, there's a motion. Thank you, Kelly. Is there a second? Anybody?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, take it to a roll call vote. Kelly, your vote?
Aye.
Craig, your vote?
Aye.
Tim, your vote?
Aye.
Anton, your vote?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Consent agenda carries. All right, so let's move right along here. The next item that we have on the agenda is Planning Commission update. There's 2 items on this. The first one is a second reading of Ordinance 2020-03, which is for the purpose statement for the business development area. I don't know if that's something that Tim wants to take up, or if that's something that Mike, you want to explain a little bit about, if there's anything to explain. This is the second reading. My understanding is that we have not received any public comments sent to the first reading, and that there are no adjustments to make to this ordinance since the first reading. So how do we want to go through this?
Yeah, I think we had a pretty thorough discussion of this at the last meeting. We did move to do the first reading, and I would make a motion to approve the second reading of this amendment.
All right, so there's our motion. Is there a second for that motion?
I would second that.
Okay, so there's a second for it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, go through the roll call vote again. Kelly, your vote?
Aye.
Craig, your vote?
Aye.
Tim, your vote?
Aye.
Anton, your vote?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. The motion carries unanimously. That then is now an approved ordinance and will be modified in the as necessary in the ordinance. So thank you for that. So the next thing that we have is we have 2020-02, which is the residential zoning modifications that we have. So we've had a number of conversations about this. I think that we've covered a great deal of ground with it. It's been sent back to the Planning and Zoning Commission a few times, and I guess I don't know where we want to start with this one right here. So Jim, Mike, anybody want to take that one away?
At our last meeting, we talked about if any of us had any recommendations or suggestions for a motion that we're willing to make for any amendments to get those to Mike. And I don't know if anybody did that. I mean, I did. I brought the information that we had talked about to create small and large apartments, the attached row houses and townhouses, and the cottage courtyard developments, to make those a conditional use in the R1 and resort commercial neighborhood districts. I don't know, Mike, if you had any language, to that effect, but I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's not complicated in terms of making an amendment to the ordinance. And if we're ready for any motions for amendments, I mean, I would make that motion that we amend the ordinance to change those uses to a conditional use in the R1 and resort commercial neighborhood districts.
Tim, did you also want to include the mixed use district?
Oh, yes, the mixed use district also. Yes, sorry about that.
I might be cutting off of service here in a few seconds. So if I do, then that's like the worst possible timing. But I'll jump back in as soon as I can. It sounds like there's probably some discussion to do with this. There is a motion on the table, so we can open that up for a second. So did anyone second that amendment for the inclusion of those conditional uses into those? The RC and the mixed use zone. So that's what we're looking for right now.
I would second that, I guess, in case we want to have any discussion. I think to move it forward, I'm open to second that, Tim's motion.
All right, so we have a second, so that does bring it up to discussion. So, so I guess jump into it. I mean, the discussion of putting these conditional uses in to those areas doesn't, well, what's the impact of that? Let's start there, and we can go from there. So.
Yeah, my concern with these uses is that they're larger scale housing activities that have the potential to create impacts in areas where they may not be completely appropriate. And when they're allowed as a permitted use, there's little oversight other than following the regulation that is in front of them. And I think that as much as we wanted to eliminate and minimize the barriers to housing in the community, I do think that the council has a level of responsibility to make sure that housing development is appropriate in the particular location where it may be. And that's why I've made this motion. I know we haven't had any real discussion about this, but I think as long as we've been talking about these types of uses, I've grown kind of more and more concerned that there may be instances where they may not be appropriate, but there could be a lot of instances where they could be appropriate. And I think we need to make sure that we're not just giving blanket approval, but that we're being open to the concept and making sure that future councils can, I guess, make this final decision where it may or may not be appropriate for this kind of use or activity. And I'll just leave it with the rest of the council to, kind of.
Agree with you.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
Sorry, Jay. I agree with Tim, and I appreciate what you've stated there. I also have some concerns about where things could be placed in neighborhoods. If there isn't really any check system in place. I also like the fact that with conditional use permits, it allows people within a neighborhood to be notified, and they do have a say and bring up any points that maybe a council needs to be made aware of. So I'm in full support of the motion you have made, and thank you for your thought and consideration of that.
I don't know if we lost Jay. Jay. All right. Heartbeat away. That's why I'm here. You want to wait for him to come back if he has anything to say, or do we just postpone his motion until Jay gets back on? Anybody have any inputs? Chris, maybe there? I mean, go ahead.
It's up to you, whether you want to wait for Jay to give input or to vote on that. You certainly can proceed, or I guess not proceed. I guess it's up to you.
Okay, awesome.
Might be more conversation you want to have in the meantime. And if not, unless it's a 2-2 vote, it really doesn't matter what Jay thinks.
Right. I mean, to that motion, I would agree with Tim's sentiment about it. I think it makes sense to have that on there, and I think Kelly brings up the good point about notification of neighbors. I think in some ways that helps it just helps the transparency so that people don't, and I think a lot of things, I know I've run into that before where people didn't know and they weren't supposed to, they didn't need to be told, right? Because it wasn't a conditional use. So, anyway, I guess, I would, be comfortable calling the vote, unless Craig, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I agree with Tim. We talked about this a couple of times now. And when he first brought it up, I thought it was a good idea. And the fact that he's been thinking about it more, he's on the planning commission. So I think he's very well aware of those situations that pop up. And I served on the planning commission also. So I agree that I think that having this as a conditional use permit within this zoning thing is pretty important because not all things fit everywhere. And this is one way of at least giving city council, future city councils, the opportunity to at least address it and to make sure we're doing the right thing on a building by building project. So I agree with Tim. I'm in favor of it.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess if there's no more discussion, I'll do a roll call vote here. Kelly.
Aye.
Tim.
Aye.
Craig.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. All right, so that amendment passes. Do we, pretty simple language change in that, Mike? Is that right?
Yes, the list is the same in those 3 zones right now. So it'll just be a simple change of moving those 3 items, large apartment, row house, cottage courtyard, from the permitted list to the conditional list. And in one case, it's called principal uses by conditional use. And then 2 other cases, it's just conditional use. I think it's pretty clear what needs to happen there.
Okay. I apologize for missing the meeting on the 10th. I guess, I know, but the last one I was at when we were talking about this, the issue of corner lots and the no side yard, is that what's missing, right? There's no. Is there any way that we can work some language into this, since this is like the big 30,000 foot, well, not even 30,000 foot view. I mean, it's a lot more detailed than that. Is there, how do we get around that? Because it seems like if we move, from camper parking, RV parking on people's lots to trailer parking on people's lots, it seems like it's going to kind of keep coming back to kind of bite us or bite future councils if we don't get some sort of resolution to, or, not exemption maybe isn't the right word, but, clarification, I guess, for how that's dealt with. Anybody else on that? I mean, I don't know, how that, I guess, fits in. Like, I can't necessarily call for a particular line except for maybe just in the graph, right, of like what setbacks are. But it seems like there needs to be a clarification of language there for.
Well, and I have had a question too with this, in the R1 zoning district, side yard setbacks are 5 feet only. And that seems a little small to me, especially when we're having those struggles and we're talking about, you've already mentioned where people are parking campers and different things and how this looks. 5 feet isn't a lot of room. That's less than what I am tall. So, and that's how I compare a lot of things. So, I would like to see it personally move to at least 10 feet, but it doesn't change the question that you're asking either, Anton.
Well, I mean, I guess, Kelly, if you want, or I mean, are you interested in making a motion to change the residential zone side yard setback to 10 feet per side on sideline instead of 5?
I know I didn't send it off to Mike. I didn't think it would be too much of an issue. I'm sorry, with a few other things I forgot, but yes, I actually am interested in doing that, but I didn't know if we needed to have discussion, if I was the only one, or if I should make the motion, see if it gets a second, and then we can have a discussion. So yeah, I guess I would like to make a motion then that we move our R1 side yard setback from 5 feet to 10 feet.
For the sake of discussion, I'll second that. And then we can have a conversation if anybody's got any pros and cons. I know, Tim, obviously you've probably council-wise, put the most look into this. Do you see any reason? I mean, if we're shrinking our lot width is 40 foot now, minimum lot width at 40 feet. And so if you take 10 off each side, that basically means you got 20 feet to work in. Anyway, I don't know. I'll shut up, Tim, if you want to say anything.
Yeah, and this is an issue we spent a lot of time talking about at the Planning Commission. I think you're right on with that 40-foot lot requiring a 10-foot side yard setback only leaves 20 feet to build, limits the types of structures that might be able to be placed on a parcel. And I think that was one of the reasons for the 5-foot setback. I think we also talked about a 7 or an 8-foot setback too. But I think we felt in the end that a 5-foot setback, I mean, the difference between 5 feet and 10 feet is probably not that significant. But there is a need to have a setback to provide for access, maintenance, and certainly separation. And, you don't want homes built up against each other, but, yeah, we talked about it a lot, and I think, I can see what you're saying, Kelly, that, that's close. It is. I mean,
yeah, one of my other concerns with it, is that we are not, I think it was, I want to say maybe in public comment, I believe it was Virginia Palmer that brought up, they're not requiring any surveys to occur either. So if 10-foot setback, if there's an issue after the fact, then there's a problem. And at least 10 feet gives you a little bit more breathing space, room for air or not room for air, however you want to look at it. That I think that might help, that we're not requiring surveys and not asking people, because eventually down the line, we all know that there's no lot size here in this community that's like the other one per se. So we could avoid some issues with that as well, possibly. Or a homeowner could, it wouldn't be our issue.
I guess my one comment would be is that just because the minimums are 5 feet doesn't mean obviously that somebody would have to build that close. If I think of going to 10 feet per, if we're talking about now what our minimum lot size is, and if we now shrink that down to a 10-foot side yard, if you had a say if you kept the 5-foot side yard, and it doesn't mean that now they're going to build, a 30-foot wide structure necessarily and have 5 feet on either side. But if it meant that they shoved 5 feet on one side and left 10 on the other, it gives you 25 feet in building. Thinking of like how somebody could design and build a house that's functional, a 25-foot wide house is quite a bit more functional than a 20-foot wide house as far as like just how things lay out. Not that it can't be done at 20 feet wide, but
So
yeah.
From a builder's perspective then, and I'm trying to think, seems to me 24 feet is a pretty common amount, right? I believe I've got a garage that's 24 when I think of trusses and everything else.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to saying 8, but that 5 to me is just way too little, and if if we changed it to 8 even, that's leaving 16 feet off. Now there's 24. Now you've got trusses that are normal, and it's, like you said, it gives you a bit more room, because I know that's what our garage is. So I think even my house might be 24 feet wide as well. So.
Yeah. I think that's just kind of playing a little bit of devil's advocate on it. But I do think that you really kind of box yourself in, despite the fact that we're saying you can build something on a 40-foot wide lot. If we put the 10 foot on each side for side yard setbacks, I think it makes it, again, not impossible, but, a little bit, maybe less good. I like the 8 foot. That's seems like a good compromise.
Well, like if you go to build, I think it's easier to build a 24-foot wide building than 25 as far as things go, or 27. The odd stuff gets a little more difficult. So I just think 5 is too little.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm sure, Anton, look at it, see it all the time, is that the challenges of sometimes building on lots in town just because of their slope or orientation or placement of structures on adjacent property all impact, where somebody may build on their own lot. People want southern exposures, orientation, to the views, and so there are a lot of considerations taken into where people, would try to build. And I think trying to make sure that there was as much flexibility in site development as practical, I think was maybe one of the things the Planning Commission was thinking too.
Yeah. Well, I mostly just wanted to, I know Kelly had brought that up before too, so just kind of be able to have the discussion about it. I don't know if Craig, if you have anything, or if we want to vote.
Yeah, I got something to interject here. Is the minimum lot size of 4,000 square feet kind of complicating this discussion? What if, you know, I mean, I know they picked a number. We're going from 10,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet. Would 5,000 square feet be a number that would be better applicable in something like this when you're trying to establish side yard setbacks? And actually, how many lots throughout our community does this affect, going from 4 to a 5,000 square foot lot? That's kind of what I'm thinking about something like this. When you make the lot down to 4,000 square feet, now you're trying to fit in certain side yard setbacks that might look good or feel good, or however they work out against your neighbor or your future neighbor. Maybe the lot size of 4,000 is something we're cutting a little bit too small. I don't know. It's just my thinking about it. If it was a bigger lot, you'd have less issues with setbacks looking good or fitting certain things in. And like I said, I don't know how many lots this would affect throughout the community, but
I think most of the lots oriented on the avenues are around 125 to 128 feet deep. So a 40-foot lot would be 5,000 square feet. It's mostly on the streets where lots that are created that are oriented to the streets are a lot of times only 100 feet deep. And those obviously would need, if they're only 40 feet wide, to be a 5,000 square foot lot would need 50 feet in width to accommodate meeting the ordinance requirements. So, you know, I mean, that's just a generality, but for the most part, I think that's true. There may be some other exceptions to that, but I think for the most part, that's the case.
I think that's right. I think like if I remember right, the 3rd Street, which was like kind of originally platted out as like Main Street, those run north-south. And so on the corners there, those lots where it abuts an avenue, those lots are only 20 feet across going across 3rd east to west, and 100 feet deep, like Tim says. And then the rest of the lots in there are 25-foot lots until you get to the other corner, and then it's a 20. So if you happen to have, you know, a corner and one more lot, you've got 45 feet of frontage, which totally fits with what we need for minimum lot width across the front, right, by 5 feet. But because we're only 100 feet deep instead of being 130, which I think is, Tim's probably right, but I thought it was like 130 is what our platted depth is on the city blocks. Then you come up shy. You come up, you know, at 4,500 feet. But I also think, I mean, yeah. So, but that, as far as I know, there's other, I guess, older sections of town, but most of the additions, you know, like the different things they're mostly oriented east-west along the avenues, like Tim says. Oh, Jeff, you want to say something?
Yeah, I can just chime in on that. The reason we have the 4,000 square foot minimum is, like you said, the lots that are on the avenues, I think I have them right. Avenues go east to west.
All the way around.
Yeah, the lots that are facing north-south, some of those are 100 feet deep, so 40 times 100 is 4,000 square feet. The typical depth of the most lots in Grand Marais would be 135 if there was an alley, and then 140 if there is not an alley in that area. So those 40 feet times that dimension, they're closer to 5,000. So I don't think you could have a 40-foot lot on the streets that are going north-south. So we talked about that before. The 5,000 numbers are more realistic minimum lot that would be platted, but you know, there are those block ends that could have small lots too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I don't know yeah, I know the like central edition. I think it is that section of them is where it runs along 3rd Street. So it'd be those lots that run, like you say, north-south with 100-foot depth. But is there other, I mean, I know there's always going to be weird outlier lots. Some of those like old resort places, you know, down between the highway and 1st, or, you know, those are some pretty narrow lots, but you can't really, I guess you can't really say that this is the general rule, because there's, in Grand Marais especially, there's always going to be an exception to that.
Yeah, so if somebody wanted to plat a smaller lot facing north or south, that would mean if they had 100 feet depth, then their minimum lot width would be 50, because they'd still have to meet that 5,000. You know, if the change was from 4,000 to 5,000 minimum.
Yeah. Craig, does that answer kind of what you brought up, or?
Yeah, that's fine. I understand. I just was curious to see how many lots this really affected, and if 4,000 square foot might have been a number that was too small to help accommodate the setbacks. You know, that's all I was more concerned about.
Well, I think my understanding is the side yard setback, that it seems like because of the way that most of the lots are platted and drawn at 40-foot width as a general rule of what the city lot sizes are, that, you know, if we jump from 4,000 to 5,000, that doesn't really help us with our side yards, because a city block or a city lot is 40 feet across on the street face, right? So we're not going to save, you know, I don't know if that makes sense. You know, the added space on that square footage is really kind of from street to alley, not so much in, you know, across the face of it, which would, I think, am I saying that right? Does that make sense to people? I mean, I guess I'm with you, Craig. I'm not opposed to setting a 5,000 square foot minimum as a lot size, but that's, I guess, a different amendment. So,
Yeah, if I could just add the side yard dimension going down, the recommendation to go from 10 to 5 is after looking at other cities that want to make housing more affordable and smaller lots possible. To get narrower lot widths, you really have to look at the side yard setbacks, because they become really important with smaller lots. So, you know, the magic number isn't 5, but 10 is kind of that, like, the number that was in all zoning codes from the beginning of time. So, you know, if you like a number less than 10 but higher than 5, I mean, that's still progress. I think the point was that 10 is not a magic number for side yard setbacks.
okay. I'll go ahead.
I'm willing, I would like to amend my motion then to change the side yard setback in the R1 zone and move it from 5 feet that's proposed right now to 8 feet.
I'll second that amendment to your amendment.
I think you could just change your motion if the motioner and the seconder want it. So your motion would just be for 8 feet.
You don't like us amending the amend?
No, it probably doesn't make sense to amend your own motion.
All right, so we can completely, Kim is now scratching out everything we said. I will then change my motion to be an 8-foot setback instead of my original 10.
Great, and I'll still second it.
Okay, should I jump back in then here? I'm back on. Thank you now.
Do you know what we're talking about?
I've gathered, yes. I think I know what we're talking about. We're talking about the side yard setback that was 5 feet in the proposed ordinance, 10 feet previously. So now we're kind of compromising in the middle at 8. So,
Attaboy, Jay.
so a motion and a second, and any further discussion on this? Seeing none, we'll go through the roll call vote. So Kelly, your vote.
Aye.
Craig, your vote.
Aye.
Tim, your vote.
Aye.
Anton, your vote.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Movement in the right direction. Motion carries. All right. So I don't know how many other amendments there are, but are there other ones we just want to go through here?
I have one more item I would like to bring up, and that's the issue of the manufactured home park that's allowed as a conditional use in the resort commercial neighborhood. And I'd like to make a motion to eliminate that as a use that's allowed either as a permitted or conditional use in that resort commercial neighborhood. And I'll leave it at that and see if there's a second.
Before anybody jumps in, Jeff's done a little research on this, and maybe Jeff, you could just let us know what's up about this.
So state statute has requirements for manufactured homes, which I think we've talked about before. And that's, in your code, that's being handled legally. For manufactured home parks, they also have a requirement. And our understanding of it is that cities must allow a manufactured home park as a conditional use in any zoning district that allows the construction or placement of a building used or intended to be used by two or more families. So anywhere that has more than single family dwellings allowed, you would have to at least allow manufactured home parks as a conditional use.
Well, that seems to kind of tie our hands then, doesn't it? If that's the case, and we do allow duplex type units within that resort commercial neighborhood district, which we do, then I guess there's no reason to make that motion if we're required to allow that.
Well, I think the point is if you feel strongly about not allowing them, you also have to exclude all multifamily options from that zone as well.
We had talked previously about the likelihood of having one of those pop up in that zone, and I believe that the consensus that we had on that was that the chance of that happening was really quite small, like almost infinitesimal. As well. Not to say that that's a reason to not take this seriously, Tim, but I also think that the cost of losing all the multifamily options in that zone overweighs that one specific use. I mean, to me, that's the way it seems. I don't know if anyone else has any other feelings about that, but maybe this is already taken care of. If we don't need to. If nobody has any desire to address, what goes along with that motion, then, and if Tim, if you revoke your motion, then I guess we don't have anything further to discuss on that particular one. So,
yeah, the only thing I would say is that I was basing this motion on the fact that the mixed use district, which is a very similar district and very specific to a small area of the city, does not allow manufactured home parks in that district. And so but we do allow two-family dwellings in that district. So I was just looking to make sure, which I thought we did. We allow family dwellings as permitted uses in that district. Would we have to then change the ordinance to allow manufactured housing or manufactured home parks within the mixed use district?
That's not how I read it. Jeff, can you speak to that a little bit more specifically?
Well, I mean, number one, we weren't targeting the mixed use district to be updated substantially as part of this proposed amendments. We really focused on the scope of the project is to focus on the residential neighborhoods, the R neighborhoods. So that's R1, R2, and RCN. Mixed use, we just updated the, I don't have it up on my screen. I believe we updated the residential uses to match R1 and RCN. So I would say that legally you would probably have to also allow them in mixed use. I don't know if
I'm wondering, Chris, are you familiar at all with this regulation that requires that we allow manufactured home parks as a conditional use? I mean, I'm not familiar with it. I never heard this before, so it's kind of catching me by surprise.
I am vaguely familiar with it, but I don't feel prepared to be able to comment it beyond that in terms of, you know, what would be required, you know, what those statutory requirements are right now. So obviously I haven't looked at that. You know, if that's something that you want me to look at, I can look at it. It sounds like Jeff has looked into it a little bit.
And one of the points Jeff made, I think, is important. The scope of this project was not to make substantial changes to mixed use. So even if we grant that there needs to be changes to mixed use to comply with statute, this probably isn't the time for it. And we probably need to add a little more process to make sure everybody in the community has a chance to be a part of that.
Well, I would withdraw my motion with the understanding that we're obligated under state rules or laws to include manufactured home parks as a conditional use in those districts where we allow two-family dwellings.
Is that something that the council wants Chris to look into more thoroughly, or is that something that we'll just let it go because Tim withdrew his motion?
Well, I think it'd be worthwhile to be aware of that, because obviously it does impact the mixed use district too. And if we're going to need to make changes to that, we should be aware of that requirement.
Okay, I get that. Well, can you do that? Can you do that, Chris? And just kind of give us a quick little report back on that?
Yeah, I can. Yep.
Thank you. Any other amendments for this? And or where are we standing with this right now as far as, because part of the process that we're at here, we can give this as much time as we want. But part of the process that we're at here is we want to make these changes so that this ordinance can get passed eventually. So is there, where are we at with that specifically? Is there someone who's ready to make a motion for the first reading of Ordinance 2020-02 is what I'm asking. Or do we have more work to do on it?
I'd like to maybe make an amendment here.
Okay.
On the subdivision, it's in the R1 section 19.0, section 4, 19.04, subdivision, sorry. I thought it got crossed out, so I got to find out what number it is now. It's the one in relationship to, there it is, subdivision, now it's 6. Height, yard setbacks, lot area, and coverage requirements. Number 2, B, front yard setback. Minimum of 25 feet, or if 2 or more lots on the same block face have dwellings, the minimum setback shall be the setback of the dwelling closest to the street. I guess I know that further down there's the same thing related to corner yards setbacks, which is E in that one. I don't think I have as much of a problem with E's language said that way. I guess I can only picture like a handful of houses that just, if that now is the new precedent for that block, it sure kind of might as well not have front yard setbacks. And I don't know, it just makes me a little bit nervous to allow, past precedent, and especially if that past precedent came from not like pre-1972 building code, but a condition or variance, to be able to do that. It seems like it just kind of could have the ramifications of changing the entire, I guess, appearance of the street.
Yeah. So is the amendment that you're talking about then to remove the language of having the setback be the dwelling closest to the street?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yes, let's call it that for now and see if anybody seconds it and we can talk about it.
Okay, so there's a motion.
Well, Anton, can you kind of repeat or summarize that motion so I understand what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd rather have him do it too. I was going to try and do it, but I'm glad that give it a shot, Anton.
So, right, are you looking at that one, Kelly? I'll read what it says right now and what I'd like it to be changed to.
Okay.
So right now it says front yard setback, minimum of 25 feet, or if two or more lots on the same block face have dwellings, the minimum setback shall be the setback of the dwelling closest to the street.
Yep.
And my motion would be front yard setback, minimum of 25 feet.
Period.
I'd get rid of all of that other stuff.
Okay.
And again, so that I'll shut up. That's my motion.
Okay, there's a motion. Does anybody want to second that so we can get to discussion on it?
I will second for discussion purpose.
Okay, motion and a second. So here is the question that comes up for me on that. So then if that's the way the ordinance is changed now, all the structures that are closer to the street than 25 feet then are grandfathered in, correct? And then in the situation that someone who owns one of those houses wants to reconstruct the house or do additions or do something like that, then do they have to ask for a variance to get that?
It depends.
Okay.
Now, you'll recall at our last meeting, we just dealt with a variance request to allow a addition to a home that was less than the required front yard setback. And the house was already there. They were putting an addition onto the side of it, and we granted that variance. I think that's the situation that would arise for, anybody that would want to put an addition on a home that didn't meet that required 25-foot setback. So what do we receive? We wouldn't necessarily see more variance requests, but it would put some obstacles, in the path of somebody wanting to put an addition on. They would have to get that variance.
Okay.
I think a pretty common finding that you have used in resolutions adopting variances for setbacks is other structures on the block have a similar setback. I bet we could find that in most of them. So if you prefer to go through the variance process I can't think of the last time we said no to somebody on something like that. Or if we think because we don't say no to people, maybe we should just codify it, then you can pick a number that you are comfortable with. And this is something that we talked about, trying to develop some language to deal with averaging, or just how do we determine with a rule what the right setback is on a block where the predominant setback is not 25 feet for whatever reason, because they built them back in the 50s or the 30s, or because they're all small lots, or for whatever reason on a block where there's a lot of structures that have smaller than 25-foot setback. How do we codify a setback that makes sense? That's what's trying to happen here. But it's tricky to come up with one that you don't perceive some risk associated with it. You know, there's a place where it might be misused. So I don't think this is going to create much of a problem based on the pattern of variances that we've seen in the past, 10 years or so. But if you'd rather make somebody get a variance to come within 25 feet, then you can do that too.
What? I mean, I guess maybe I'd just clarify too. So if that frontage, so say somebody's house is 25 feet back where it's supposed to be, but somewhere else on the block, there is a place now, however they got to that point, right? Their place is basically right on the sidewalk. Now, if they came in, the people that have their house 25 feet back and they decide they want to put an addition on their house as written right now, could they basically say, well, there's precedent on this block, we're going to put our addition on the front of the house instead of the side or back of the house and build right out to where that house is?
Yep, that's how I read it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Anton's motion kind of addresses, if you had a home on one end of a block and that was establishing the setback for that entire block, maybe it doesn't make sense that a home on the far end of that block should still be able to abide or utilize that same setback. I mean, unless that's what we're wanting to see is homes creep closer to the street. But I don't think that's what our intent is, to see homes creep closer to the street. But to try to, well, we did talk about this averaging and trying to figure out a formula to come up with a way to take existing structures into account. And I do think that the Planning Commission does that when they look at these variances, but it doesn't mean that they're going to grant a variance to build up to the lowest setback that might exist on that block. So maybe, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, Anton's motion kind of goes back to the 25 feet, where maybe something in between still makes more sense in some of those developed areas, but it doesn't make sense to necessarily create a alt standard that we might not be willing to accept.
Well, Anton, can I ask you another question about the purpose for this motion? So is the purpose for this motion not to have a precedent exist that that structures can be built closer to the street than 25 feet, or is it to how do I want to say this, or is it to make it more difficult for people to want to do that? Because what I see is that right now, if we just remove the 25-foot thing, then and leave it as it is, then somebody could come with a variance to like build much closer to the sidewalk than even the closest structure already on that street. And that could be, how do I want to say this? Who knows if it would be approved or not, but that would be a process that would have to be gone through for that. If you have language in there like that's in there right now, then there's an understanding that no houses will go closer to the street than what the closest one already is. I wonder if it would behoove us kind of as a compromise in between these two positions. It doesn't solve any problems. I totally get that, but it definitely puts the language back in there that the front yard setback is 25 feet and that variances can be sought for structures to go up to the closest, the closest existing structure or something like that. I mean, I don't think that solves a problem, but it does seem to be kind of in between the two. And if that's really not what we're shooting for, if that's the wrong tree, then we can just disregard that and go with either 25 feet or the language that's there right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to make it more difficult for anybody to do anything necessarily, but I guess that and again, like I'm in favor of it on the corner lots again, because we don't have clear language of setbacks and they're already at, having to abide. I don't know why, but it just makes me, I feel like it just could have, I mean, if they had to go, I mean, obviously those buildings there have been through, if they're more recent, have been through a variance process and were granted it. Like Mike said, we don't really say no to those things, but I'm assuming the neighbors heard about it anyway. So it's almost the, similar thing to Tim's motion about, apartment buildings. I mean, at least it's, somebody doesn't, come home and I don't know. I feel like it's like it has the, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but it has the opportunity then for, okay, now my view down the street is totally blocked. So now I'm going to move closer. And then the person next up from them, now they can't see it. Not that everybody's going to be putting additions on their house, but, generationally thinking a little bit longer term, it seems like it's this like push towards the street, which seems, I don't know, it seems awkward to me.
I thought of that too, Anton, and I guess where I live, my street, from my front porch, if you stand on my front porch, I look between the two lighthouses. And so I keep telling my husband that I want to put a little front deck out to the front, kind of moving to the north, so I can put a little 2-seat couch and I can sit and have the best view almost for coffee in the morning. But if my neighbor decided to, like you said, add on, build out, move towards the street, they could take that away fairly quickly. And I've thought of that too. I know you guys hear me say it a lot, but that whole being a good neighbor thing and trying to create neighborhoods where people aren't competing for the better view and where people aren't building up high and blocking. When I look at the building height of 35 feet, downtown it's 30, but in my neighborhood it's 35. And I think, wow, really? But I can see where you're going with it. And I have thought of that too. Does it make it not in my neighborhood right now, maybe not in my lifetime, but does it make it kind of an area where people could compete to keep pushing out and get the better view or whatever, hey, if I add a really nice deck or I do something to the front here, I'm going to get more money yet again for my house. Or the variance process, I think, worked. And Tim's right. We did one 2 weeks ago. The only neighbor they had was a small home located below them that I believe is by a family member. I think maybe that changed. It's daycare. The neighbor across the street is a church. Above them, it's a school. It fit within the neighborhood. I didn't have an issue. Would I think something different if it fell within a neighborhood like mine? Then it would have to be looked at. And, at least, again, people kind of have a little bit of a say. And not that I want everybody to be able to think that they can dictate what their neighbor does, but I go back to the part of being a good neighbor and what fits. So I hear what Anton's saying.
I can just add that I think one of the intents of the flexibility of this setback was that if lots were going to be smaller to allow more affordable housing, that the allowing flexibility on the front yard setback would allow more developable space on a small lot if there was other houses that were already closer than 25 feet. So it's kind of removing that barrier of a 25-foot setback where that's not really the norm of that block face anyway. So, and we've seen it in other cities, and we did start with different language, one that was more focused on the average of other houses, and that I think there was some concern about that being hard to enforce or to manage that calculation. So we tried to do it in a simpler way like this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's one of those things we can go round and round on. I mean, I guess since I made the motion, either I'd say, unless somebody else has anything to add, we could vote on it, or, I don't want to take up the whole night on it because I've got more.
Okay.
Not a
Well,
lot.
I mean, Anton, it's really up to you. If you feel like this is something that you want to push through. I mean, if you withdraw it, then we're not going to vote on it. But if you don't withdraw it, then we will vote on it. So.
Yeah, no, I guess I'd like to hear whatever. I mean, most everybody said something, but I mean, I'm fine with getting what their final thoughts are on it through a vote. That's fine with me.
So Anton, you want to remove the closest, you want to just stick with the 25-foot setback? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, right.
And not without the possibility of a variance.
Right. So that if somebody decided or wanted to go forward in front of that 25-foot, then they would have to go through the variance process.
Okay. So you're still leaving the variance process as a possibility.
Yep.
In that. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. The only thing that I have about that I want to bring up is, and maybe I'm mincing words too much here, but in the language, it says if two or more lots on the same block have dwellings, block face have dwellings, the minimum setback shall be the setback of the dwelling closest to the street. I mean, I guess my concern is that then if we remove that language and just have it be a minimum setback of 25 feet, then the variance process would allow people to build closer than the current closest dwelling on the street. I mean, now whether or not they get approved, it really is dependent on the variance process. But I guess maybe I don't even.
Jay, they can do that right now. I mean, that's already a possibility. So that won't change.
Well, with that language, it doesn't really seem like it to me. The
No,
language is in there right now.
Even with that language, you can still ask for a variance from that language. So
okay, so then basically, if we just remove that whole last part, then we're just relying on the variance process more heavily for anything that's closer than 25 feet.
Correct.
I wouldn't say we're relying on it more heavily. A property owner would have to rely on that to build closer than 25 feet to the street right away.
All right. I guess that answers my question. Does anybody have any other? Well,
my comment at this point would be, it's like not every lot is a cookie cutter deal.
Right.
So I think it opens up the opportunity to at least assess a particular lot that may or may look fine having a building 20 feet from the edge of the road in that particular area. In another area, it might say, no, 25 feet looks better or is better for the neighborhood. So at least it opens up the opportunity for every lot to at least be assessed on a lot by lot basis by utilizing the conditional use variance. Doesn't mean that it has to be granted, but at least, the emphasis here is to maintain 25 feet, but you're going to run into situations where that may not be true for everything, just like people who build houses by lakes that need to be 100 feet from the lake, but everybody along the lake are 40, 50, 60, 70 feet. So they go before the county to get a variance. It may be granted, it may not be granted, but at least they're getting the opportunity to, express their concern. That's how I see it right now. So I think.
Cool. Yeah, I think that conversation was really helpful for me to understand exactly what we're talking about here. Any further conversation on this amendment? Hearing none, we'll go on the roll call vote. So the vote is to take B in that in subdivision 6 and basically remove everything following the or. So that's what the motion is, and the second for. Go through the roll call vote. Kelly, your vote.
Aye.
Craig, your vote.
Excuse me. Is it Craig?
Yep.
Yeah. Aye.
Yeah, my
I was-
list is this.
I was coughing.
On the side, yeah. Tim, your vote.
Aye.
Anton, your vote.
Aye.
And I will vote aye for that as well. Understanding the variance process, how that works. So that amendment carries. That change will be made as well to the draft. All right. So Anton, you said you had more. So
Well,
you just want to keep going?
just real, I'd actually make a motion on the 5,000 square foot minimum size too.
You had to, like you haven't made that yet,
I haven't made that yet.
but we
But I-
already discussed it.
Make a motion. I can go up and find what subsection it is if you're interested.
I don't think you have to. I think we all know what we're talking about here.
For
Well, maybe you should just for clarity.
clarity's sake, I gotta find the right, so 19.05A, lot dimension standards for residential districts, R1, RCN.
There it is.
Lot area minimum currently connected to city sewer is 4,000. I would like to just put that at 5,000.
All right. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Okay. Hearing none, we'll go to roll call vote. Kelly, your vote.
Sorry. Aye.
Craig, your vote.
Aye.
Tim, your vote.
Aye.
Anton, your vote.
Aye.
And I am an aye for that as well. That amendment carries as well. Anything else?
Okay. We had talked, and I guess I could have missed this, but we talked about the max, what was it? The maximum setback? That's gone now, right? Okay. I couldn't find it. I just want to make sure it wasn't in some other line. So that's cool. The only other thing I guess I wanted to ask about was, again, I brought it up, Jay, you were gone, about the corner lot side yard. And is anybody, like, how do we do that? Like, how do other places do it, Jeff? Or, because if we're, I mean, and that's not really an amendment, but I guess it would be, right? It would just be something I'd like to see in there before the final thing gets passed. And I apologize, I didn't send anything for you guys to do. We don't have to do it right now, but before we do the read through or the second reading or whatever's going to happen, I would like to see some clarification on however that wording is. I don't even understand. I don't really know how to do it, but I guess I'd like to see some clarification in that so that as we talk about these other things that are ordinances, not zoning ordinances necessarily, but other ordinances within the city, we have something to look back to understand what in the world they're talking about.
This is Jeff. Anton, can you clarify what the concern is with that? It sounded like earlier it was about maybe defining an exterior side yard different than an interior side yard.
It has to do with corner. Mike, I always get them confused. Mike can probably tell you, but I think the way I understand it, on a corner lot, there is no rear yard. Is that right? It's 2 side yards and 2 front yards. There's no rear yard. So on a corner lot, needed to define, if we want people to park their RVs in their rear lot, or to the rear of their house, but they live on a corner lot, there's no way for them to legally park a trailer or an RV or whatever it is that we're telling them we need to do on one of our other ordinances. So,
Okay.
Anton, I don't think this is the place to change that.
okay.
I think when you're talking about a rule like the parking of RVs, that's the place to deal with it.
Okay.
There's probably a whole lot of stuff in the zoning ordinance that this relates to. So if we did want to dig into it, I think it's going to take us a little bit of work to figure it out.
Because the definitions seem clear enough, like when we're talking about zoning, you know, like that, that's clear. And I mean, that's all. I just want to make sure that since we're doing this sweeping change, like if this was the place to plug that in, so somebody can reference it out of our zoning ordinance when we're talking about non-zoning ordinances, that there would be a spot for it. But I'm fine with it. I just didn't want to have missed that opportunity to address
I
it.
think as long as our definitions are clear, then we can use those to change the other ordinances as they're being impacted. I mean, that seems to be that kind of what you're saying, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, there's a spot in the ordinance where it talks about a corner lot and determining one of them being treated as the frontage for width purposes based on which was longer and which is shorter. There's other ways to try and figure out where we want things to be or how the lot is being used and is oriented. But I think the idea of a front yard being the one that faces the street is still kind of critical. And we've got enough homes that face streets and avenues as their frontage that I think it'd be hard for us to codify what we mean by that with the definition of corner lot here. And rather, we're just going to have to deal with how we want corner lots to be used in those other areas of the code.
With the butt of his stack.
Okay, sounds good. Somebody started listening to Harry Potter there or something.
You're almost exactly right. I just opened my phone to see what time it was, and it started playing. So that's what we were listening to in the car before the meeting started when I was driving up. So anyway.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Then that's all I got for changes on this then.
All right. Any other amendments that anyone wants to talk through? All right, so we've gone through a number of amendments. So I want to take the temperature of the council for where we're at right now. Are we prepared at this meeting with the amendments that we've made to have a first reading of this, or do we want to have those changes made, bring it back to the next meeting with all those changes in there so that we can see how it all looks, and then have a conversation about a first reading at that meeting?
That would be my preference, Jay. Again, if public's watching, it gives public time to dissect what we've done tonight, to let us know if we did a good job, bad job, see if anybody gives us any feedback on it. So I would love to do that at the next meeting when we have it written without all the red and all the lines and markings. It would be nice to see it in its natural state.
Yeah, that's my inclination as well. Did you agree, Craig? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So does that work for you guys, Tim and Anton?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think, I think one of the ideas we had was we wanted to try to get this completed in time so that if people were trying to plan building projects for this next summer, that they would be able to start making those plans based on our ordinance requirements. So, I mean, I think we still have time to do that, accomplish that.
I think that actually was the goal a year ago too. So you're still right on track, everybody. And one of the other things you talked about was trying to get the changes that you just recently discussed in front of people so that they know. So obviously anybody who's followed along the meeting, I think is going to have a pretty good idea of what those are, but we'll also make some efforts to, like the one-page summary that was out before, just make sure everybody is up to speed on what the current events of the changes being proposed are. So that'll have to be modified a little bit. We'll resend it out for people to look at, and then it'll be on your agenda The ordinance itself is going to be a red line because that's how it's written, but we can also have the clean version available for people to look at. I actually think you've only made 4 amendments, and one of them has changes in multiple locations. The other ones really don't. So it's probably easier to think about these amendments as like bullet points on a piece of paper than actually trying to find them in the actual ordinance itself. So that's what we'll try to do to just make it real clear to people what changes you've proposed here.
Okay, that sounds like a really good idea. So let's proceed like that. And yeah, thank you for all the work and for the amendment ideas. I think that works well. It serves the ordinance well. Ready to move on? Shall we?
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to Tim. I know that, you've got 2 council meetings after tonight. I know you have poured your heart and soul into this and done a lot of work. If the planning commission with us sharing thoughts, and I want you to know I really appreciate your perspective and what you've done, and I want to say thank you very much. So.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, the planning commission did a lot of work on this, and it wasn't just me. It was everybody that really, gave their opinions, and we hashed this back and forth a lot. I mean, Jeff knows, and Mike knows. They sat through this, and we thought we might have completed this earlier, but obviously these things have to take their own time to mature. So, yeah, I mean, if it happens while I'm on the council that it's adopted, great. If it doesn't, I'm sure you're fully capable of making good decisions too. So, thanks.
Well, we sure as heck hope so. All right, so we're going to move on then. So the next thing on the agenda is Resolution 2020-11. So this is phase 2 of the IRRRB utility funding for the Highway 61 project. So I don't know if Kim and Mike, if you guys want to give us any breakdown on this. My understanding that this is literally exactly the same thing as we adopted last year, or we accepted last year. It's just the second half of it. So I've looked through all of the wording and the language that's in the packet, and it all looks pretty much exactly the same as the stuff from last year. So unless Mike or Kim have anything that they want to add, this is money to help us pay for our project. So so unless people want to discuss that more thoroughly, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2020-11.
Is this for $250,000 again?
Yep.
We got
Yep.
that. That's what I thought. I will motion for approval of Resolution 2020-11.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I knew you guys were going to do it at the same time. All right, we'll count Tim on that. I think he got there just a split second earlier. So Tim is for the second. Any further discussion on this one? I know that Kim went down to Duluth to talk to these guys about talk to the MnDOT guys for getting numbers. So kudos for Kim for going the extra mile, quite literally, to make sure that we had everything that we needed for this. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Kelly, your vote?
Aye.
Craig, your vote?
Aye.
Tim, your vote?
Aye.
Anton, your vote?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so that resolution carries. So then, great. So we'll get that sent off and we'll get that taken care of. So the next one that we have on the agenda is Councilor Salaries. This was put on the agenda at the request of Councilor Kennedy. So I'll let Councilor Kennedy take care of it. So what you got there, Tim?
Well, all I'm going to say is that I've been on the council for 18 years, and it's the salary is still the same as it was when I first came on here 18 years ago. I think it's hard when you're on the council and you're trying to give yourself a raise for the work that you do. But I'm not going to be on the council, and I think it's appropriate that the council and the mayor do get a raise. It's been a long time. I know all the work, and you know all the work that goes into taking care of all the duties and responsibilities. And I'd like to make a motion that we increase the council and mayor's pay by $100 per month, beginning in January.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Chris,
Maybe yeah, we better just pause here for a second.
yeah, because I feel like this had to happen before the election, right, Chris?
Well, you get two issues. One is that it won't take effect until the next general election. So my guess is that's 2 years from now. And then the other is that in order to do it, you have to do it by ordinance.
Gotcha. So then we need to have an ordinance written to have that happen, and we've got 2 years to do it.
Correct. Yes. I mean, certainly you could have a motion to direct, staff to bring an ordinance back to you. But, again, the effective date of that salary increase won't be until after the next election.
Tim, you're 3 weeks too late.
Yeah, it's not the first time. Won't be the last time. Well, my intent is to see that the council and the mayor, you do get an increase in salary, just because I know how much work goes into to doing this job. And whether it happens in January or it happens after the next general election, I just think it's appropriate that it be addressed. And if you think about over, and I'm not even sure when the council last received a salary increase, because it was more than 18 years ago. So yeah.
Right.
And so if it's a matter of putting together an ordinance, I'd support the adoption of an ordinance. So if we can pass it off to Mike and Chris to put together that ordinance, I'd support that.
So is your motion then, you're modifying your motion to be that the council directs the administration and city attorney to draft an ordinance that increases the council and mayor pay by $100 a month?
That would be my intent, yes. So
okay. So that's a motion. So I'll open that up for a second.
I'll second it. I'm not running again.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on this?
It's, I'm the one that brought this up at our budget meetings back in August. I'm the one that asked the question, and obviously staff did some work and sent information back to us. It's hard for me to say yes right now, knowing, in 2 years, who knows what I'll be doing, but where we were at on that list of 12, we sat, the mayor's was tied for 5th, and the councilor pay was tied for 4th at that time. And if we add on $100 a month, that's $1,200 a year. That's pushing us up probably into the top tier. Now, dependent upon what the others do, which is kind of what I like to see what others are doing. I recognize $2,400 a year is not breaking our tax levy or anything, but considering we haven't moved our wages for 18 years, like Tim said, to know that we're still sitting in the top 4 and 5 of those 12, I have a hard time saying yes to something 2 years from now, not knowing where we're at. That's just
Oh, you're cutting up, Kelly.
oh, that's, yeah.
Yeah, still, you might have to turn your video off. We didn't hear that last little bit. Oh, she's cutting up.
Kelly, I might suggest leaving and coming back. It seems like you're frozen.
while she's doing that, so I'll give my view on this too. So how do I want to say this? The amount of time and energy that I've put into the position of mayor has changed my life. It has changed my relationships. And I didn't get into this for the money. I got into this because I wanted to do it for my community. I don't think that anyone else on the council right now got into this for the money. However, with that said, the amount that we get compensated for the time that we put in is pretty shockingly low, and I would be in favor of something like this as well, just because it's it hasn't happened for such a long time. So that's that, and I don't intend to run again either. So that's maybe we're set up in the right spot then to have the decisions made in some way or the other. So we'll wait and see if Kelly pops back in. Any further discussion on this topic?
I mean, the worst you're going to have happen here is Chris and I are going to write up an ordinance, and it's not a very complicated one. So you'll definitely have a chance to dig into do you really want to do this or not?
Yep.
Or is this the right time to do it at a later date and figure that
So let's
out?
bring this to a vote then. Kelly, do you have anything else to say? I mean, I think that we kind of got the gist of what you were saying. So.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to bring this to a vote then. So that vote is to direct the administration and the attorney to draft that ordinance for the increase in councilor and mayor pay by $100 a month. So, Kelly, your vote? Yeah, sorry, you're the first one. So.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't get to hear what everybody said. I'm going to go with nay for right now. Sorry.
Okay. No, you don't have to apologize for your vote. It's your vote. Craig, your vote.
I'll vote yes.
Tim, your vote.
Aye.
Anton, your vote.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. So we'll have that ordinance come back at some time. It's obviously not incredibly pressing, but it'll come back at some point. So with that said, we will get to our council and staff reports. So Kelly, you can start. You're at the top of my list.
No reports, just, I should have brought this up a while ago, but I still think we're going into a new year. Obviously, staff will see their cost of living adjustments, but we still have not done a performance evaluation for city administrator, and we have not done anything with adjusting the pay for a very long time, and I think that needs to be done. It's going to be a little tough to do with moving forward. I guess we only have one new counselor, so it might not be so bad, but I think going into 2021, that is an absolute must, and that should be done within the first quarter, really. But that's all I have tonight.
Okay, Kelly. I think that's on my list too. So I think that we should get together or have a Zoom on that to figure out how we want to accomplish that and get it done. So I like your goal by the first quarter too. I think that's an achievable goal as well. So Craig, your report.
Just going through some notes. I got put in the hospital right after this meeting, so I'm not really remembering a whole lot of it. But anyway, we did have some talk about rate increases of 5%, but then I think I remember we tabled some issues because it had to do with sites and how they were being managed with permanent campers and those types of things. But I did get a memo here lately about how October ended, and I'm pretty pleased with how our rec park ended in numbers for the year, and also the golf course. So even given COVID and all the delays we had getting the rec park open, with cutting back on some of the expenditures, those types of things, along with extra nightly camping, we ended up having a pretty good summer at the rec park. So I'm pleased with that. That's about all I have right now, so.
All right, thanks, Craig. Tim, your report?
Nothing to report.
Anton, your report?
Also nothing to report.
All right, so I'll jump in. Library board had a meeting last night. We were talking about important issues like reopening and providing service. They've, with their little window that they've been handing materials out, it seems like the consumption of fuel at the library has gone way up because that window lets in a lot of cold air. So that's something that we're going to keep an eye on and monitor to make sure that that works. The work plan for 2021 is kind of a continuation of the strategic plan from 2020 with lots and lots of adaptations to the whole COVID situation. Working on getting materials to people who are who are underserved, and also maintaining interest and viability or relevancy of the library in our community. So we were really pleased. The board was really pleased with that. Sue McClone is a county rep that was just welcomed onto the board. We're still in need of some city reps. So if you know anybody who would enjoy being on the library board, tell them to put an application in. It'd be really great. And then last week, John Moran did an anti-racism indigenous awareness presentation through higher ed with the county. And I got to watch most of it, and it was really very, very good. I don't know if they recorded it so that it could be something that we could send out to people, but it would definitely be worth your time. It's kind of a mini retreat kind of thing. I think it was about 4 hours long, but there were lots of really great exercises that happened to just kind of break into how we think about racism, how we think about the impact of different cultures in our structures. So that was really quite helpful too. And that is pretty much all that I have. Any other updates from Mike, Kim, Patrick?
Just a couple of things. We're talking about replacing the carpet in the council chambers because, we're going to use it at some point again now rather than tear this building down in the next couple of weeks. So just letting you know that's going to happen. Here we are being very hopeful that someday people will be in that room again. And then your next meeting is the first one in December, when we'll be holding our Truth in Taxation, such as it is. We're going to try to get people who are interested the opportunity to actually have their face in front of you for that meeting for the first time. I don't know how that's going to happen yet, but Patrick will have that out in front of people for them to figure out if they have something to say to you about the budget and taxes. We're going to try to honor that as best we can in the time of COVID without having 400 people on at the same time. So hopefully that'll work out great. And if so, then perhaps that can be a model we can use for future meetings where people want to participate in public comment. So we'll see how that goes.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Anything else?
Yeah, I had one thing I just wanted to, I'm not sure if everybody was aware that Hal Greenwood died last week. Hal put in a lot of service to the city of Grand Marais and county in general. He's currently a member of the Planning Commission, served on the EDA, just did a lot for the community, and his service is going to be missed.
Thanks for saying that, Tim. I was just about to chime in with that. So yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, I totally hadn't heard that. So thanks for the update. Anything else? Any other updates or anything? Hearing none, we have completed our business for the night. Thank you so much. We are adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.